want to introduce someone that's a pivotal point in creating this panel discussion today. Rita Freeborough, who works in the Counseling and Career Development Center, did I get it right? Helped us to put this panel together. She contacted our panelists and did a lot of work and helped us to get the pizza. So we want to thank her, and I want to give her a few minutes to speak at the beginning of our discussion here.
Thank you.
Rita.
Thank you. Every year we have this panel session, which is a nice thing to do because you're in a good field and there's so many different careers and opportunities. Is where do you go? What do you want to do? So one thing hearing from us, but it's another thing is hearing from the professionals themselves. My title on the campus is Employment Development Specialist. Just call me the job lady. It's just so much easier. I'm the only person on campus that will help you with resume writing, job search, interviewing. I do not do job placement, but I do network with employers. They do share with me job opportunities. And many times they contact me and say, do you know someone that we could hire? So get to know me and I will be happy to help you. And also I don't work alone, but many times you're gonna hear from the panelists that internships are important in job shadows. For internship is Mr. Felix Musa over there, and he's in the arts and science building, very resourceful. He knows a lot of great employers. And you will hear from the panel how important an internship is, and it's important to put on that resume. Also, Kate Moody, way in the back, Kate. If you have 24 or less credits, you can do job shadow. So if you both briefly want to talk a little bit what you do, real quickly.
We have many opportunities, especially in your field, computer science, information technology. They come in almost daily relative to agencies, organizations, private sector employers all over the community here in this Jamestown geographic area, Dunkirk, Fredonia, Olean. So we have many, many opportunities, and we could absolutely align you with an internship that would be so valuable. If we call it the most important thing from your footwork, your theory, transitioning or bridging to an application stage where you could actually put those skills that you're learning each and every day to work. And it's just tremendous life experience. Come in for an intake. We talk about your interests. We have forms, obviously, to have you fill out and give us some ideas about which direction you'd like to go in. If you're going to be career ready after you leave us, or if you're going to a four-year institution, we could bridge those kinds of opportunities and advantages for you, to put those skills to work. So it's the internship itself, okay, is that, as you know, in your particular field, it's not embedded or required, for your associates, but absolutely something that we highly urge, you to participate in. Fall, spring, or summer are all available, and each time you're in a particular site, 45 hours would equate to 1 credit hour earned, 90 hours would be 2, and 135 would be 3. You'll need a faculty sponsor, and Professor Loomis and Professor Kim Jeffries, that's the bad one now, Professor Davis, all very receptive. We've never had any problems at all finding a faculty sponsor, fall, spring, or summer to help you build your learning contract. Site supervisor obviously is important, the actual site, but like I said, we have tremendous opportunities in this area, Dunkirk, Fredonia, Olean. If you're across state, okay, if you live in Albany, Syracuse, you want to do something this summer, electronically, you can communicate with the site there and do everything with the faculty sponsor also, and have all those things done electronically to monitor and to assess your performance as you go through an internship. So sky's the limit. We have all kinds of opportunities that will be certainly available to you. The actual learning contract is the tool that we utilize, and it's very simple. It's your information is on one piece. The job site itself lists the job requirements, what you'll be doing, duties and responsibilities each and every day. And off of the job requirements, you sit down with your faculty sponsor and you build your educational objectives. What you want to learn, what you want to learn on the job. And like anything else, the last piece, and since you've been in first grade, it's the assessment. How do we know you learned it? How do you know you learned, those educational objectives were stated. So that's the assessment piece, and oftentimes it's not very too intense. It's a journal, a log, and in your case, and many times it's some evidence of something that you may create, or you may be something working on. If it's a particular project for a company, an organization, building a website, possibly doing some IT things relative to some of these companies, troubleshooting, all kinds of things that you can provide as evidence to your faculty sponsor showing that you met your educational objectives. And it could be a narrative. It's not going to be anything too intense, maybe a 3 to 5 page essay just to reflect on your experience as you went through your internship. So 1 hour, 45 hours, 1 credit, 45 hours, 90 for 2, and 135 for 3, depending where we place you. That could be embedded into an entire summer, especially if it's paid. Now, I didn't say anything about paid or unpaid. Not all of them are paid. You can't promise, that these are paid situations. We anticipate and expect to a point the private sector that they would pay our students. But that's not always possible either. But regardless, you're having that experience. It's going to be on your resume, your job application, and most importantly, because you're earning credit, it'll be on your transcript. You go into Banner, you'll see your credits there. You cannot, we don't have any internships that exist at JCC unless it's for credit. We just don't even get involved in anything that is not for credit. So it's always a bona fide situation there. So those are the pieces. Any questions right now?
Thank you.
Okay, right down the hall, 107. If you ever have some brochures, when you leave, my card. Okay, many of you I've seen in students seminar earlier, in your college career, and if you want to revisit, some of the pieces that we have, please do so. We also have, I always have to put a picture for our international piece. We have 2 students in China as we speak, teaching English as a second language, if you're interested in that. We also have opportunities in Valladolid, Spain, and we just opened the door in Tokyo, Japan, for another opportunity to teach English as a second language. Japan and Spain, we're actively recruiting as we speak for the month of June. 4-week, 2 credit hour opportunity. You don't have to be an education major, to get involved in this particular activity or this particular life-changing internship. We've had students that have been math and science majors, art majors, individual studies, etc., that have traveled internationally. It's tremendous time for you to do that because you have responsibilities now, but soon, you'll be having many more responsibilities. It's always a good time to think about that piece about experiential learning.
Okay, thank you. Kate?
Just very briefly, I coordinate job shadows. A job shadow is a 4-hour to 8-hour observation of a professional in a specific job to help give you an idea if that would be a good fit for your career goals, your personal preferences, your strengths. For those, you're entering the IT field, and if you're questioning or kind of wondering, well, I don't know, do I want to go programming? Do I want to go networking? Do I want to go web design or web development? Those are different skill sets in different areas. They're all, great job opportunities. But if you want to talk to people who work in those fields and observe a typical work day for someone in one of those jobs, please see me. I passed around an information sheet for you to fill out. A couple people came in after I had passed them out. So if you don't have one, you can contact me through we're on the JCC website, Experiential Learning. Felix and I both, you can get hold of us that way, or stop in my office. I'm right across from Felix. Be happy to set you up with a couple of job shadows where you can basically test drive a career, see if it's a good fit for you. Okay. Any questions?
Thank you, Kate. And one quickly, have evaluation sheets. Please fill them out after the program, and I'll be at the end there collecting them. Thank you.
So I just have a couple of other introductions. I didn't introduce myself, I just realized. So I am Ken Loomis, one of the instructors here on the Jamestown campus. I know that I know many of you, but there are a couple of faces that I don't see out there. So welcome for those of you that I don't know. I want to introduce Jeff Davis. I'll actually let him introduce himself if he wants.
I'm Jeff Davis. I'm the director of computer science. I actually teach role on Dave Jeffries on sabbatical this semester, so I take over the network reports on this campus. I do have a few students in OLAN that came over, or I'm actually running the networking course kind of in 3 modes. One of them is here in Jamestown certainly, but I've got a few students in the networking class over in OLAN. They're here. There's Jeff. Sits right for me to show your hand. Jeff, his girlfriend Melissa. Jeff is actually the president of the student senate in OLAN. So he's making a trip over here. And this is Luke, my tri-student.
Chauffeur.
Yeah, chauffeur. He made the trip over too. And one more introduction. This is Gene Schrader in front of me. Gene is the dean of STEM, the science, technology, engineering, math. And she's here just kind of as an observer. And I guess make sure that we kind of behave ourselves. I just want to say for Kate's own on information, I've been test driving my career in this for 40 years now. So we'll see how it goes. Very good, thanks.
Okay, so without further ado, let's actually meet our panelists. I'm going to ask them to let us know what their job description is, and maybe in like a sentence or two, very briefly, let us know kind of what that means. So sometimes these titles sound very complicated or sound very confusing, or they use words that we don't understand. So I'm just going to ask them to describe a little bit about what they do, and to also let us know what their education background is. So if we would just like to start at the end here, and we'll work over here. Oh, okay, we can start with Denise.
Hi, I'm Denise Furby. I'm the Executive Director of Technology here at JCC. That also involves, I'm also serve as the Chief Information Officer here for the college. My job is really to provide the leadership and vision for the technology here at the campus. So departments that work under me are the MIS department, Management Information Systems, Hardware Network Services, Software People, and Media Services. So I spend a lot of time planning, doing long-range planning, like where are we going to be in 5 years to provide the technology that all of you need for your classes and the students 5 years from now are going to need. And that includes the infrastructure under the ground, to the wireless, to what's not even been invented yet. We need to be prepared for that so that we can respond quickly. So I get to work with not only my team, but a lot of the faculty, administration, and stuff to make sure that everybody has the computing power that they need to get their jobs done. My educational background. I actually have, my first degree was in equine management, which is horses. My second degree was a bachelor's degree in public relations and marketing. And I did a master's degree in adult education, and I have postgraduate work in teaching in the virtual classroom as well. And I started out here in continuing education at JCC, and then I spent 8 years as the distance learning director, which is how I got into technology and working with the technology people. And then I moved into this position as executive director.
My name is Mary Madison. I also work here at the college. I'm in the MIS department under Denise. My title is programmer analyst. So I do a bit of programming. I do a little bit of project analysis, project management. I'm currently doing some process analysis mapping where we would take a department or several departments and take a maybe system and map out who does what and the timing of what's going on so that we can make the process as efficient as we can. My educational background, I started here just like you guys, here at JCC for 2 years, got my associate's degree. I transferred up to RIT where I got my bachelor's degree. I did a 1-year internship here in town. The company was TRW that I was with at the time. It's now called SKF. And along the way, I've just done on-the-job training. Typically, in most places I've worked, you're required a good 40 hours a year or more towards learning to keep you up to date. Because obviously, what I learned back here in 1983, I I'm not doing any of it right now. You know, the industry really changes.
My name's Randall Fabrius. I am a network hardware support for HP Corporation. My client here in town is SKF, so I know Mayor. What I do there is general support of PC-related problems, network problems, intermediary help desk for people. Pretty much anything that's requested. My education, I have a bachelor's in chemistry, and I also have a bachelor's in computer information management from Fredonia State. History-wise, I've done everything probably you can do in the computer industry. I originally started off as a programmer and was laid off from programming and quickly morphed into doing network work. Set up networks for several companies and ended up doing a lot of temp jobs. One of the temp jobs was for SKF at the time, and it was an opportune time. Did essentially a 2-week stint there. 2 weeks later, I got a call that they had an opening. The person that was there was leaving, and they liked me, and I've been there ever since. It's been quite interesting. I've done everything, like I say, programming, hardware fix, problem solving, and actually I'm now dabbling in latest technology, I guess you'd say, apps for an iPhone. Hopefully that will roll into the Facebook, and we'll make less money. Other than that, it's been interesting, and one of the interesting things that find out is I know all these people here. I know quite a few people here, and what they are in my network. And one of the things I want to start right off the bat is one of the ways in finding employment in this industry. I always like to say it's a 3-step process. Your resume is going to get you past the HR director. Your classwork and everything you've done. Your work experience is going to get you in to talk to the department, and your friend's going to get you the job. Now, when I say friend, that is somebody in your network. Is that true for 100% of the jobs? Not really. But for a large part of the jobs out there, that's how it's going to go. So what you should be doing now is making friends, networking, and that's networking with your fellow students, networking with your professors, networking with the support staff. Anytime you have a chance to network somebody, you do it, and you have them as support later on when you're looking for a job.
Thank you all. So what I'm going to kind of do with the panel questions is I have a few canned questions here that come from both myself and Jeff and some students that I have written out. So I'm going to be switching back and forth. I'll have some canned questions, but I'd like you to also think of some questions and try and pick one person to focus that question on. That way, you get a chance to kind of have a one-on-one conversation with one of these panelists, and then we all get to overhear it. So we get to all kind of eavesdrop. So I'm going to start off with one of our canned questions here. And I'm just going to ask everyone to respond. So I'll just start the opposite end. Since Denise went first last time, we'll start with Randy. Could you let us know what's your most valuable experience in the classroom or educational experience that you had before joining the workforce? So before your first job.
It was not actually a single class. It was actually a professor, and the classes I took from this professor. This professor had a notoriety about him that he was very hard, very difficult, and people tried to avoid him like the plague. I ended up going and specifically seeking out that professor in his classes because the classes were difficult. I'm not saying difficult. They were classes in which you had to work, and if you did the work, you did well in the class. It challenged me, and that's ended up being what helped me out later on in real work. Is when you come up to a problem that's a challenge, and you don't want to have to you don't want to sit there and go, I don't want to do that challenge. You want to say, yeah, I want that challenge, and go forth it and try to solve the problem or the challenge, whatever it may be.
I'd say my most educational experience while in college before I had a full-time job was probably my internship. I had 2 years under my belt from here and 1 semester at RIT. I'd learned a lot. I thought I knew everything. You go into the working world, it's not quite what you seem. One of the things we learned here was decoding a holographic card, and you probably never even heard of them. They're the old cards that you used to feed into the computer with all the little punches out of them and so forth. And I was told by professors here, you will never see one of these. These are pretty archaic, but it's beneficial for you to understand how they work. It'll help you understand how the computer works. And my very first job, the first day, they handed me several decks of cards in different colors. They said, this is what you're going to do your programming on. These are the yellow ones for your COBOL programs. These are your JCL ones, they're pink. And I just looked at them and said, really? I thought disk space was so cheap and nobody used cards anymore. And they said, well, somewhere maybe, but we don't jump to the latest technology when you're in manufacturing. We wait till it's tried, tested, and cheap before we move to it. So I learned a lot, you know, not only things like that, but just, you know, I thought of programming as sitting at a computer all day, and it's really not. I would highly recommend if you have a chance to intern or co-op anywhere that you jump at it, even if it takes you an extra year to graduate.
I think for me, I actually came back as an adult student, so I had 6 years work experience before I actually started my education. So for me, I think the most valuable piece was actually the relationships that I built, like Randy said, with the faculty and staff at the college. In fact, my first job in education was a direct result from my admissions counselor, who on my last day of, like right before I was graduating, saw me in the hallway and said, there's a position open, there's 1 more day left. If you want to apply, I think you'd be great for the job. And that's how I got started in education. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that, 1, I learned how to build those relationships, and 2, I was a really good student and I made sure I was responsible so that they would recommend me to jobs. And I think you got to think about that. I mean, this is the time where you're building that that background for people to recommend you. So, you know, you want to be doing your best in class, be on time, be reliable. When somebody checks your reference and they go back to your instructors, what they have to base that reference on is, you know, were your assignments submitted on time? Were they done well and, you know, neatly? Or were you organized? Those are all things to really think about, because really the references and the network that you build here are really going to be valuable to you.
Thank you all again. I do have another canned question before we move to the student questions. I think we covered a few of these already, but I'd like to ask Randall, since I know you have a degree in chemistry, was technology, well, obviously must not have been your first choice, but what was the decision that made you move to technology?
Actually, it was and it wasn't. In high school, way back when, and so I'm not going to date myself, but they had computers and it was just starting out as an infancy. Due to financial reasons, I was restricted to go to a local college, which was Filming State. When I went for Filming State, we did not have a computer curriculum. And so my second choice was chemistry. I was always wanting to go on to computer science. And while finishing up my chemistry degree, they did become accredited with a computer science course and degree. And I quickly started picking up courses that so I could graduate also with a computer science degree. I've always been fascinated by both by math and by computers.
I'm gonna also pass that same question to Denise, because I know your
I have a really different
original
background.
degree is a little bit different.
Actually, before I went back to start my education, I actually worked for a software development company for a year that worked with developing a lot of the things that you use in the counseling center right now, like when you do career pathing, or even looking for schools that are, would meet your interest area. I actually worked on developing some of that software, and it was before they even had computer science degrees and stuff. So I did a lot of data entry and helped do destructive testing on programs. So that's kind of my first experience with technology. But for me, that was always just something I did. I was, as computers came in, I just kind of did that as part of my job. It wasn't ever a thought that I really wanted to go into technology. And I think where I'm at right now, it's always helped do my job better. Whether I was in the continuing education department and helping set up training for companies, a lot of that was technology training. When I was working in the distance learning area, technology was the basis for how we did what we did in distance learning, whether it be interactive television and video conferencing or online. So the technology has always been kind of an underlying thing for me in my career.
Thank you. So I'd like to open up the floor a little bit and ask for a question. Again, try to choose a specific panelist, and that way everyone can try and get a chance to ask. So I know Chase was practically jumping out of the seat there, so we'll give him the first question.
Mary, one of the requirements here for JCC to graduate is either system analysis or database management. You can either have one of both of those. Which would you consider to be more important? Which would, in our new developing world?
I wish I would have looked at the curriculum a little bit and each one. When I went here, we had one choice and it was computer science. I think it depends what you want to do in the long run. Your database is definitely going to get you probably far in programming. I'm someone who definitely analyzes the data. Before I even think of the program I'm going to write or the steps I'm going to do, I want to know the data. I want to know where the pitfalls are. I want to know all the different scenarios that can happen so that when I write my program, I don't have a whole lot of bugs, or I can eliminate as many as possible. What was the other one called?
System analysis.
System analysis. That'll also help you with programming. It'll also help you with hardware. With hardware, you've got to make everything connect. You got to get from the PC, to your network, to your servers, out to the internet. That kind of analysis is good. It's also good on the programming side. So I don't know. I think it's a toss-up. Maybe, thought.
It just kind of, like you said, depends on what area you want to go into. I have a feeling what you start in, you will use no matter what you end up in, because I think some of your skill sets, you get different experiences, and that kind of leads you into your position. Sometimes you'll grow in that position because you have skills to do that or background to do that too. I also will think you are going to continue your education. A lot of my staff, and Mary being one of them, you do a ton of online learning right now because things change so much. So I'd say do both.
Good answer. Okay, so do we have another student question? Yes, Aaron.
I have a question for Denise. I'm an IT major, and after graduate, going into an IT at a business, working on computers and everything, that business is generally going to stick to what works. So they aren't going to necessarily keep up with technology. Would you say that's better being in the education system where you have to keep up with technology in the IT department? Or would you rather
That's
just,
Good question. That's a good question. You know, it's just kind of, it's a challenge both ways because we certainly have a challenge with funding here too, because we are so large for us, bandwidth is a huge issue for us to try to keep up with the bandwidth of all the new technologies coming up. I think different industries, you know, are different. There are some industries that they can't afford not to be current. And we kind of talk about our goal is to stay, you know, to kind of be state of the art on the leading edge. We don't want to be on the bleeding edge of technology. You know, we're not going to be the Google people out there going, hey, let's try this in beta. And if it doesn't work, no big deal. You know, you know, it's okay if that fails. You know, we do try things and we pilot things in small, in small increments, like the video conferencing, cloud-based video conferencing system that we have. Some smaller businesses can do that, but like in the manufacturing area where, wow, if you invest in the wrong technology and you're investing millions and millions of dollars in a technology that's not proven, they're gonna be a little bit slower to move. But the advantage is coming out of school, you know, the more that you know and can bring to a company to say, you know, we've tried this or I've done this in an internship and we've experienced, you know, XYZ technology, how can you help that company maybe move forward would be advantageous for you, I think. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
Would either of you like to add on to anything?
Well, definitely in industry, everything is driven by cost. Nobody's they do not do anything unless there's a cost advantage for doing it. And even then, it's not always a driving force. Sometimes the driving force is support's no longer available for what you're using. And an industry out there loves to have support. Even if they've never used it, they want to have that safety net there. So a lot of stuff is, you know, driven by cost, as Denise said. You know, you have a limited amount of money to play with. You'd love to have the state-of-the-art technology, but it doesn't always happen. You know, you as students probably all have smartphones. Industry doesn't like to buy stuff for their employees unless they have to. But probably a lot of the people in industry do not even have smartphones other than their own that they brought in and possibly are using for business purposes. It is definitely cost-driven.
Return on investment. I mean, it really is tough. You can spend a lot of money on technology, but if you can't show the return on investment, not only in industry, but in here, you know, we're going through that process right now here at the college. In fact, I'm presenting on Monday about what we're going to do for our next year planning. And we have to show what is that return on investment? What, you know, how, when we enhance technology, how is that project going to be a priority over many, many other really great projects here? And having to figure that out, you know, that return on investment is key.
All right, so I'm going to go back to a couple of canned questions here. And I guess I'll just put this out to everyone. I guess we should probably start with Mary first this time, since she's in the middle. So do you think that having an industry certificate, so having some proof of your skills, is important to obtain a job? And for Denise as an employer, maybe you want to give us the flip side. So what do you think, Mary?
I don't necessarily have any certificates, so I'm going to say it's not important, but that's from a programmer's perspective. I think if you're fixing computers and you have an A+ certification, or you work with routers and you have a Cisco certification, I think on the networking and hardware end, certificates are much more important than they are on the programming end. People seem to be concerned with, you know, what languages I know. You know, if you're a web programmer, do you know your Java, your XML, your HTML, your JavaScript, and so forth? You know, your mid-range mainframe, do you know COBOL, do you know RPG, different report writers and things. So for me, certificates have never been an issue. but that's from a programming side.
Yeah, I would say I'm gonna jump in on here because absolutely, when we've hired several computer technicians and people in our MIS area over the past few years, and absolutely, how you can prove that you have the technology skills is critical. You know, your degree is one thing, but as you continue on in your career, staying current in those certificates, for me, from a standpoint, is gonna get you what Randy said. You know, your resume, your point is with your resume is to get in the door and get an interview. It's not gonna get you the job. Your interview is gonna get you the job and your background and how you can prove your skills. But those certificates are definitely gonna make me look at your resume a little bit more. If you have, you know, an A+ certification or Cisco certification, like we do, we have Cisco phones, we Cisco networking gear, those different certifications that I say, yeah, you went on for continuing education. I know you know how to program a switch. I know you can, you know, put in the network core and program that and make everything work, or you can manage our call manager system here. That's gonna move you up higher on the pile for an interview. So for me, you know, even like the A+ certification, even continuing education stuff online, you may not have certificates, you've done a ton of stuff online that you can say, yeah, I took these courses and stuff and continued your education. So those are, I think that's a very valuable thing to continue on now and through your career.
Yes, most definitely. It shows that you are going a step above everybody else in learning your trade. It also shows that you're continuing learning, and it's also going to be beneficial in job security. Now, job security is not having that job tomorrow. Job security is if you don't have that job tomorrow, you can get another job in a month, a week, a couple days. That's your job security in this industry. If you stay at a place for longer than 5 years, you're probably going to be doing good. If you don't, you're going to have that capability of going out and finding a job and marketing your skills. So anytime you can get a certification, or we like to say the alphabet after you enter your name, it's going to help. Is it going to guarantee you getting in? No, but it's going to give you a better chance compared to somebody that does not have a certification.
So I'm going to open up the question to the audience again. So does anyone have any questions ready?
Oh, good. Can I like answer a question nobody asked?
Sure.
Go ahead. You had a question?
Go ahead, Jason. Again.
Okay, this is kind of just a fun question. What technologies are you guys most excited for that are coming up?
Web-based video conferencing right now. If you ask me this week at this point, we just instituted this new web-based video conferencing system, which is much more economical than a lot of hardware-intensive systems that we have. Although how many of you have been in one of our interactive video conferencing rooms? Several of you, a couple of you? Okay. Thank you. I was going to say a couple of you I know have. They are very robust and very stable, and you know, are really facilitate what we want to do with video conferencing in the classroom. The new technology, the cloud-based video conferencing, is much less expensive. You know, it's new and it's a growing technology. It's not quite as robust as what the older, you know, more established systems are, but the potential there is really exciting to be able to connect from your iPad into one of our classrooms right now. Or, you know, for me, when I was home on vacation, I connected into several meetings here, and you know, that distance has gone away, and it just, that's my technology I'm excited about.
If I had the choice, I'd be excited about writing apps for my smartphone. And I know you're doing that. One of the guys in our department, Ed, he's got an app that's just personally for himself on fitness. I'd love to, I mean, I do everything with my phone these days. I don't have it out of my hands for 10 minutes probably. If I had the choice, I'd want to learn how to program one of these.
Automation, that's what the industry likes and loves. Automation as in production, but also automation as in controlling and gathering of information. In production, they want to know where a product is at any one time in the process. And they also want, and to do that, they want to have accurate information. So if they can get that information into the system automatically, that's what they want. They don't really want to have to depend on somebody to enter it in. So automation really is very key out in the industry, and gathering information and knowing where your product and your parts are at all times.
Get back to my question.
Oh, okay, we have the empty
So
question.
how many of you are looking, are wanting a job in this field, in computer science area? Pretty much all of you. How many of you have written your resume so far? How many of you have searched online to look at other resumes for this field? Like just Googled, computer science resumes or jobs. If you haven't done that, do that. How many of you have visited Rita in the back and had her review your resume yet? Okay, none of you. I'm gonna recommend that highly. I review resumes all the time. I think this is a question for the rest of you too. I'm sure you've seen some. Resumes get you in the door. You need to make sure your resume represents you in the best possible way. I often see jobs listed with no detail of what you've done. So there's no way somebody reading your resume is gonna know what kinds of things you can do. Even if all you have is, here are the classes I took, and you maybe don't have any work experience right now. That's something that Rita can help you with, is how do you put a resume together that's gonna showcase what your potential is to an employer. It's really, really, really valuable to have somebody else help you with that, look at it, review it, proof it. But you need to have some detail that shows an employer what are you gonna bring to that company, to that organization. You need to be able to sell yourself. So, start now if you haven't written a resume, and, really work on that, because that's really your calling card into a business. And I can't stress that enough, that you really need to spend time and develop that and keep it updated as you go and as you get work experience. I constantly, now I'm looking at people here, so please don't take this wrong for those of my colleagues that are here. I constantly keep my resume up to date. When I add new things or I'm doing new things in my job, because I'm not gonna remember that a year or 2 years down the road, or if somebody asks me, what kinds of things have you worked on there, you need to keep that up to date so that when that perfect job comes along or a new opportunity comes along, you're ready. Randy, how about you jump in, because I know you.
Am I answering your question?
No,
Do I
just
have a
like,
question?
yeah,
I wanna
yeah,
ask that?
what do you think about resumes?
Up to date.
Yeah, well, and I hired Mary, so I know what her resume looked like. But I mean, what do you think about resumes and what you're looking for?
Mary followed the steps that I outlined before. She had a resume that got her into the door. She had work experience that got her to talk to her. And then Denise called me and said, how'd she do?
And I had no clue. He was not on I have no idea, like I do now. At the time, I had no idea how she called him out of the blue. Wasn't one of my references, wasn't one of my past employers. You never know what these people hiring you are gonna figure out about you without you knowing it. They'll Google your name and find things out about you.
So Denise was in my network, so
Yeah.
Denise knew that where I worked and where she had worked, and said, okay.
Do you
talk
review
to her.
resumes? Do you
Huh?
review resumes for people? I mean, do you look at your position right now?
Periodically, it is, first of all, make sure there's no spelling mistakes, no grammar, okay? One thing you're going to do is, everybody does, they try to tailor the resume to the job. And of course, what we do there is we take the existing resume and we start cut and pasting. And we forget that one thing that's in that, we forgot to cut that out. And that's what's gonna show real quick. We'll look at that. And one of the things it's gonna come across to the employer is that, okay, we knew what they were doing, but they weren't thorough and they didn't check the work. And that's not gonna get them into an interview.
Especially if in the computer science area in your programming. Attention to detail. Make a coding error, I mean, that's not a good thing.
No, it isn't, and it's, although it's gotten a little less tough now, back when we were starting programming, we had to, we didn't have the opportunity to hit buttons and compile. This was all done on mainframes, so you got to run your program twice a day, once a day, for testing purposes. So you would sit there and you'd make sure that program worked because you didn't want to have to do it again. The detail is right. And of course, now you're out in business, you make a mistake. That could be a multi-million-dollar mistake. Hopefully it isn't. Hopefully they've got a system in there for testing. A lot of industries do. A lot of industries do. A lot of small ones can't afford the testing phase. So they're depending on you to do it correctly and do it, making sure all the I's are dotted and T's crossed, and everything's going to work well.
You've got a lot of resources here at JCC. Use them. I mean, this is part of your educational experience. Use the people you have here at the college and have them look at your resume. Have practice interviewing with them. Am I going beyond your questions?
Well, rein in a minute.
I can
1
answer
minute.
that.
Yeah.
It's your question.
I know, sorry, it was my question. Sorry.
Just by working here, there was an email sent to me by the occupational therapist department saying, we're looking for bodies that work here that will mock interview our students before they get jobs. And I haven't been here that long. And I said, oh, that sounds fun. I've never interviewed anybody. I don't know how much help I would be. And I told them I'm rather a novice at it. And they said, no, we need people. And they assigned me 3 students, and I had 20 minutes apiece with each one. And I can tell you my number 1, my number 2, and my number 3 choice. And it's amazing the difference in resumes between those 3 people. Just talking to them. I'm not comfortable up here, and you can probably notice that. And obviously none of the students that were interviewing with me were comfortable. But the more times you get that under your belt, even if you're just doing it with an aunt or an uncle or a professor, somebody that doesn't know you, just pretend, that is really good experience.
Absolutely. Practice and be prepared.
May I also add really quick about to the resumes and interview. Communication. I know you're in computer science and information tech, but communication is very important. Know what's on your resume. I help you create high impact resumes, and I mean 30, 60 seconds to employ you look at your resume. If they don't see what they want to look, they won't call you. If they see what they want, they will call you. So I do have a good reputation on campus on creating really good resumes. I take my time with your resume. I research the field, know what's on your resume, being able to articulate the terminology in your field, really know how you can present your skills to benefit the employer.
And don't underestimate a cover letter too. You do need to have a cover letter. You can't just send a resume. You do need to have a cover letter. You need to personalize that cover letter and make sure you're sending it to the right person. Instead of, we occasionally will see cover letters come in and they're, say, regarding a job that isn't our job because it was a cover letter they used for something else. So definitely make sure you proof your.
So another thought about, we talked about the evidence relative to learning contract earlier, internships, and you may have a portfolio or something like that you want to take into the interview. Now that we've gotten to this point tonight, and just a hint, sometimes employers are so busy that they're not going to go through page by page, so anticipate that, but be ready, because they may say, and the person interviewing should say that, okay, I can't go through all this, but please, choose just 2 areas, 2 pieces of evidence that, demonstrate the competency that you may have for this particular position. So be ready with some paper clips or sticking out there so you're ready to think on your feet at that point. And Rainey talked about the $1 million. If they're hiring you, it's $1 million decision. If you think about all your the salary that you'd be making throughout your career, and also all the fringe benefits, staff development, in-service training. You know, the employers are going to be very astute and very careful to hire the right person. So again, all those pieces that our panelists are sharing relative to what you need to be equipped with, and also the internship, which pops right up, you know, as far as something that prospective employer will see right away. And those are the kinds of things that you're going to be investing now and in the future.
Yeah, I have a portfolio. Every job I've ever applied to, I've taken in a binder, a portfolio. In my case, it was paper when I started, but I absolutely have a portfolio. I have evidence of stuff I've worked on, projects, even if it's a listing of projects or a listing of, you know, things I've accomplished, but I actually do have a portfolio. And I did an internship as well when I was a student, and again, that's work experience that goes on your resume. And any of those of us who hire, more experience you have, the better. Is, you know, where you can communicate that you have knowledge and what you can do for us, that's going to get you in the door. So thanks for adding that, Felix, because I think portfolio is really a good thing to keep handy. And I actually have a drawer that every time I do something that I think, oh wow, I might someday want to show somebody this, I stick it in the drawer, I stick it in the file folder, so I can always go back and pull out what, like he said, what's appropriate for a specific position or something.
And one of the things that Rita says, she's got she helps through your resume and says that the employer's going to look at it in 30 seconds and that's going to make their decision. You may not think that's true, but you do it every day. You pick up your phone, you look at a video, and you look at the video for less than 30 seconds. And you'll decide right then and there whether you want to watch the rest of that video or not. Your resume is going to be that video, and it's going to have to pop out and show your capabilities really quick.
Since we are talking about new employment opportunities and trying to get a job, I know that the technology industry is not the most, let's say, female friendly, or there are not that many women in the industry, although I have to say our panel discussion here is a little lopsided today. It's the opposite of what you see in the industry. So what I would like to do is have a question specifically for some of the female, the women in our courses. I'm always excited when I have women that are trying to get into the CS field. What advice could you possibly have for women going into technology or IT or computer science in general? And it doesn't just have to be for the women on the panel. So Randy can answer.
Well, I've never thought of it in that perspective. It was just what I wanted to do, and I did it. It is a male-dominated field, and as I notice out here, there are very few females.
Confidence.
Yeah, confidence. I've always,
Be confident
known
in
what I
yourself.
could do.
And go for it.
Yeah.
That's
And
what you did.
actually, yeah. Denise is our director, executive director. The last place I worked, Pat Pearl was our executive director. There are many women who do well. Right here, your dean is a woman.
And vice president.
Yeah, go for
You know,
it.
yeah.
Is all I'd say. I've never thought of it in that perspective. I've just done what I wanted to do and kept focused and moved on.
Yeah, the biggest problem with IT departments and perception is that everybody perceives the IT people as geeks. And yeah, we probably are, okay? Don't be afraid of that title or that stereotype. You go there and you support that you have the knowledge and capability, and that you're not going to be just standing along the wall. That you're going to get in there, you're going to do the job, you're going to take the challenges. And like Mary said, there are actually quite a few IT female ITs in HP, quite a few, a lot more than you would expect. Unfortunately, well, the head of HP is a woman. So yes, they're there. But again, a lot of people, they have a stereotypical IT is a geeky industry. Guys are geeks. Don't see a lot of girl geeks that are out there saying I'm happy.
And I think one of the things I guess I never thought like Mary did either, the difference between male and females coming into the field. I would love to see more women in this field. I think that the opportunities for anybody in this field are great. I mean, one of the assets I know, like with Mary hiring her, I mean, she's been one of my best hires lately. I'm like just thrilled. But she also has, as she's grown in the field, has a lot of confidence coming in to it, and really can, like Brandy's talking about being geeky. There are so many things in this field that aren't behind the screens, in the communication closet doing networking and stuff. Mary has, from her industry, is a green belt for Six Sigma, and right now she has, which wasn't something on her job description, wasn't something that we necessarily ever thought, but she is doing a lot of process mapping, as she mentioned. Not only did she start out with our area doing some of that stuff and for our banner projects and things like that, but now she's being asked by other departments on the campus to do that, and that is a great skill set, and that has to do with that analysis and things that she learned from the computer science area of how do you map something, and now that whole process improvement piece is just definitely in her wheelhouse, and we as a college are being able to take advantage of that, and those skills are things you develop based on your computer science background. So there's like tons of things that you can take from this field and apply anywhere.
And I think probably we're still having a problem with females in IT because it's a math science area, and we're having a hard time getting females to go into math and science. That's not to say that if you do go in there, you're not going to have opportunities. There's lots of opportunities out there, and I mean, I work with some women every day in IT, and it's just like they're just coworkers. I don't look at them as a woman. I look at them as a coworker. But it definitely is right now male dominated, as most science industries are male dominated. Engineering, male dominated. It
doesn't need to be.
It doesn't need to be now, and you need to assert yourself, and you're going to assert yourself. You're going to have actually probably more opportunities than a male person, because you're going to speak up, and they're going to go, yeah, she's a woman, and she knows that kind of stuff, and a guy will speak up, say, oh, that's just another guy.
It's a good way to stand out.
It is, and like I say, there's a lot of opportunity out there. There's only one thing I want to ask your people here, and that's, you don't have to answer it, but you have to ask yourself, why am I going into IT? Do I really like IT? Do I really like doing the work? Or am I going there because I see dollar signs? All right. I've known people that have gone into IT because they saw dollar signs. None of those people are in IT anymore. You have to like this industry. As with any job you're going to do, you're going to be doing it for a long time. You better like what you're doing. It better be interesting to you. It better be something that you want to go to work every day to do it. Because when you start saying, oh, I got to go to work again, it's no longer fun. It's no longer a job. It's a chore.
That's great advice. I mean, you really don't have to love what you do.
So speaking of what you guys do, I've got a loaded question for you. My students will probably recognize it when I ask it. if you had to divide your job into tasks that are design-oriented tasks, where you're designing solutions to problems, versus actually sitting down and solving the problem, what percentage goes into the design part and what goes into actually doing the work? So just give me a split percentage.
Wow, mostly design. It's all about, I'd say 75 or 80% is probably planning and design. Even probably more than that. I mean, the execution is the small part. Like, if the good design, I mean, anything, the more things you can, I think Mary mentioned that, and both mentioned that about, the more you do the work ahead, the less rework you have at the end. So, the process mapping that she does, everything, it's like, for me, it's in the design phase where you spend a lot of your time so that the solution you pick is the right one and you can implement it quickly.
I agree. Design, I like highly weighted, 80-20, I'd put it, design and analysis. Because if you don't design it right, we were in the conference room the other day with the non-matric app and with College Connections and trying to figure out how we get college students to go through a similar process to what you guys do to get enrolled here, and all the different idiosyncrasies and issues having to do with their age and several other things. Designing that and getting it right to start with is crucial.
Yeah, the actual implementation.
The implementation's gonna go quick, but
Yeah.
definitely design and analysis.
You'll be spending a lot of time in meetings. A lot of time in meetings. And you're gonna sit there and go, I wanna get into this, I wanna get into this. It might be one of your pet projects you wanna do, but you're gonna spend a lot of time in meetings, doing the design phase, as they say. And then you're gonna get to it and you'll be able real quick.
But I like that part of it because that actually gets me with people. If I had to sit at my computer 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, I probably would be less happy. So the whole people thing is good.
Problem solving skills.
That's where you get your,
problem solving skills. They're critical. They're critical. You need to be able to see, you need to be able to walk in and kind of see what's going to happen. I mean, is this, you have to kind of anticipate this. Like, this recently happened, and we were prototyping a solution, and often we put something together, brought in another department on campus and said, we've got an idea. Here's what we think we could improve one of the processes here. And, so we put a prototype up, and the person developing the prototype, when we got done, and they came back and said, yeah, that's a great idea, and here's all these changes we can make that will make it really good. And when kind of debriefed the employee after, they said, well, I thought I was done. I thought we were done. I thought I had the solution, and now you guys want all these changes and stuff. I said, but that's part of the process. I mean, you have to be able to talk to people and go, is this really going to fit what they need? You can't go in with I've got the solution and my solution is the only solution, because when you sit down with the group, you get to see all the other views and all the pitfalls that they might see that you aren't. And so you spend a lot of time in that design phase and listening to people and before you actually just implement that solution.
I'm glad this is being recorded, by the way. I'm just going to play it every day.
But don't worry, you'll have fires to put out.
Yes.
You'll have plenty of fires to put out. And that's when you really start to think on your feet quickly. And, those are the ones where I got that problem solved. We got instant gratification.
So thank you. I want to open it up to the audience again. Does anyone have any questions? I've given you plenty of time to think about them. Any questions? Yes, Amanda.
Other than an understanding of hardware and programming, what other skills do you think we should develop while we're in college?
People manage, getting along with people, problem solving.
And communication.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Communication.
A lot of communication. I mean, there's always a job in which you don't have to communicate. Bill over in the corner and he just programs away and that's all he does. And he does a really good job of it, so we don't do that. But communication is what you're gonna need, because, you know, you're there to solve a problem for somebody. So you're gonna have to talk to somebody to find out what that problem is. And without that communication capability, you're gonna sit there and go, I got this problem, and you go, okay, I got that, right? And you're gonna go back and give the solution, go back, and they're gonna say, no, that's not the problem. That's not covering what I wanted. You have to be able to communicate back and forth. And a lot of times, you know, the person may not know exactly what they want.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to go in there and, you know, be a IT executive and figure out what they want.
That's a great question, and I think you guys are saying exactly right, the communication piece. I know in Mary's case, that's what we use her for a lot. I think for what I do too is I translate. I translate what that end user wants to what the programming needs to happen. And sometimes what they tell us and what they actually want are two different things, but they don't know the IT language. They don't know what, you know, this term means to all of the technical people. So the technical people can build this really pretty house, but it might not be what they wanted at all. So the more you can develop those skills to be able to translate the really tech talk into what end users can do, you know, kind of think of your parents, you know, programming the, you know, whatever electronic technology that comes out next week. You know, you've got to be able to, if you can develop those skills to do that translation from the tech side to the customer side, you will be very valuable for a company.
For example, those of you here, somebody could come to me tomorrow and say, you know what? I need a report that shows me all the students that were here in this class. And I go and I write a quick report to pull all your J numbers out and put it on the thing. And they'd say, oh, you know what? I really needed to know which one of them were, you know, sophomores that were going to be graduating. Or, you know, I really wanted this sorted differently because certain ones are getting credit from certain teachers, and if I give them the whole list, you know, it'd be nice to have it sorted so each teacher only got their students. If you don't start out having those conversations and having that communication early and doing that problem solving, you're going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth about a dozen times to finally, they thought they were really clear when they said, I want a report that shows this. But they weren't as clear as you thought. So that whole analysis and upfront communication is so important, and being able to ask the right questions.
Take public speaking. How many of you got public speaking? Couple. Seriously, I know people dread that, but as I think you mentioned earlier on about practice interviewing, practice public speaking. The more you get, the more you practice, the more comfortable you'll be in it. So I highly recommend that course too.
And for a job, hope you never have the interview I had one time. When I walked into the interview, sat down across the table from a gentleman, and he goes, what do you want to talk about? And that's all he said. And I talked the rest of the time.
Somebody else had.
That was a very interesting interview, and I found out that I almost had the job, but I lost out to this other guy. Why? He had a friend.
So I think we have time for maybe one more question. You get to be the last question.
This question's for Randall. I just remember you mentioning that you have a bachelor's in chemistry, and that you work in the engineering department for Hewlett Packard. I mean, chemistry, Hewlett Packard, I was just wondering, is that, like, did that even affect you working there, or is that just more?
No, I mean, it's
like teaching that you got?
It's nice to have more knowledge. I love having a chemistry degree because I make wine. But you know, it's a science degree, and in truth, I had gotten my chemistry degree and I got my computer science, and I was really ready to go back for a physics degree. And unfortunately, the powers to be, which was not me, said I had to go get a job.
Mom and Dad?
No. No, somebody more
And this is
important
for
than
Brittany,
mom and
yes,
dad.
this is for.
But, no, I mean, it was, the fact that I had a chemistry degree was just, circumstantial. Truly, I like the computer science. I love sitting there trying to figure out the problem. I actually try to sit there and think like a computer. And if you can sit there and try to think like a computer, you'll have fun in this semester. Because there's gonna be a lot of times in which you're like, why isn't this working?
There are always skills in whatever degree program you have. You've got to be able to see what you can take and what you're learning in your education now and how you can apply it to whatever you're doing, because you always can. There are you've not only taken general education courses, but the fact of how you manage your time to get through school is going to play on how you manage your time in a job. You pay attention to that. This is your time to experiment and find out what you really like, and like Randy said, get in a job you like. You want to be going to that day after day, not be a drudgery, but you're practicing skills here while you're a student that are going to help you in your job no matter what that job is.
Be ready to change.
So I want to thank our panelists one more time. So please give them a round of applause. I know that some of you might have a 6:30 class that you've got to run off to. It is about 20 after 6, so we're going to cut it off here. There might be a little bit of pizza in the back. Go ahead.